Welcome to OU Campus Basics Training. In this training video, we're going to go through an entire OU Campus training session. This is the same training that you would get if you attended a face-to-face training in a computer lab with us. So in this session, we're going to talk about how to log into OU Campus, how to navigate through and find our files, and how to edit and update our pages so that our department site is up to date and accurate. So the first thing we need to know is that when we set up access for sites in OU Campus, we only have access to our own department site. So if you don't have access yet, you'll need to contact Web Development Services. You can do that by emailing us at websupport@uvu.edu or by phone at extension 7975. We will need permission from the site owner or site manager of your department site. If you're not sure who that is, you can contact us and we can let you know. We just want to make sure that the right people have access to department sites. So once we have our department access set up, we need to make sure that we're always going to our own department site before we log into OU Campus. Right now I'm on the main UVU homepage. And because I'm only granted access to my own department site, I would get an error if I tried to log in here because I don't have access to edit the main UVU homepage. So I'm going to go to my department site, and for me that's going to be a training site. So here I am. This is my own department site. For the purposes of this training, I'm just using a training site which is not very pretty, not very fleshed out, but hopefully your department sites are going to look better than this one. So here I am. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and click on the UVU logo in the corner. This will take me to a login screen. And if I've never logged into the system before, I'll get a screen asking me to accept the terms. Essentially, we just want to make sure that people are being responsible with their access to the site, that they're not going to post anything inappropriate or confidential on their department site. So I use the same information that I would to log into UV Link. So my UV ID and password, and I hit login. And I'm taken into OU Campus. Now, whichever page I was on when I clicked that UVU logo to log in, that's the page that I will be taken to in OU Campus. So I'm here on my main homepage. We'll come back to this screen in a minute. First, we want to talk a little bit about how to navigate around in the OU Campus system. Up at the top, we have a toolbar, or a menu bar, and mine probably looks different than yours. That's okay. You will have a dashboard and you'll have content, which are going to be mainly where we'll focus. So I'm going to click on dashboard and we'll take a look at what this is. So here's our dashboard. We generally want to check this regularly, maybe once a week or so at the least. First we have our inbox, and this is just going to be a spot where we can communicate with each other through the OU Campus system. So if you need to communicate with other people in your department about different files that you might be working on, you'll see that show up here. If you need to communicate with one of us on the web development team, you can do that. You'll also see messages coming from us from time to time, either about updates to the OU Campus system or reminders about web community meetings, things like that. So keep an eye on your inbox. Just be aware of what's happening there. You can also have it forward to your Outlook email as well. So that's an option. Next to that, I have an activity view, and this is just showing me all of the work that's being done in the OU Campus system, whether it's by me or by anyone else. Next to that, I have a section for checked out content. And what it means to check out content, to check out a file, is that it's only accessible to me when it's checked out by me. This prevents us from stepping on each other's toes when we're working in the system. If more than one person is working on a department site at the same time, you might accidentally try to work on the same file at the same time, and you might end up overwriting each other's changes. So this prevents that from happening. If you see a file with a yellow light bulb next to it, like I have here, that means that the file is checked out to me. If the light bulb is white, that means it's checked out to no one. And if there's a red lock icon, that means that it's checked out to someone else. So here, it's showing me all of the files that I have checked out across all of the OU campus system. So if I have access to work on more than one site, it will show me all of the checked-in files, or checked-out files that I have in any site. If I want to check in a file because maybe I'm finished working on it and I just forgot to check it in, I can just click on the light bulb icon and it will be checked back in really easily. So that's our dashboard. You do have an option to configure the dashboard if you want to. That's available. Next to that, we have a content tab, and this is where we're going to do most of our work. So I'm just going to go to the content tab. I can either click right on content or I can click on pages. It will take me to the same screen either way. So here we are in our main content view. This is showing me all of the folders and files that make up my own department site. Every department's going to have different folders and files. That's okay. By default, every department will have a docs folder and an images folder. We'll talk about those more in a minute. So, something we always want to be aware of when we're working in OU campus is this, what we call a breadcrumb. And it's up here near the top of the screen. It starts with this house icon. We can think about our site as being structured in a similar way to the way that we would structure the files on our computer hard drive. We may have folders and subfolders within those folders. We may have individual files alongside subfolders, and our site is going to be organized in a similar way. And this breadcrumb comes in handy when we're trying to navigate through and find whichever file it is that we're looking for. So we can think about the house icon representing uvu.edu. That's our main level of the site. And under that, we're in a training site. So if I were to open a new tab and type in the address of my department site, I'm going to see that the URL of my site will mimic the breadcrumb. So here we are, uvu.edu, that's our house icon. Next to that is training. So our house, uvu.edu/training. Now, anytime we're looking at a website address and we see that it ends with a / like it does here, technically that's pointing to an index.html file. So if I were to type in index.html, you can see it takes me to the exact same location. The browser just hides that index.html for simplicity's sake. The reason that I mention this is because when we're in OU campus and we're looking for this particular page to edit, we're at uvu.edu/training/index. Now, in OU campus, it's going to be .pcf, but once it's published and live, it will become .html. So, because I know that that's technically an index file, I'm going to look for an index file in my site. So here it is. That's how I would find that page. This is going to be true of every subfolder across our entire site. If it ends with a /, technically it means index.html. So let's say I wanted to edit my students page in my site. So this is my student section, and if I look at my URL up here, it's going to give me an indication of where I need to go to find this file. uvu.edu, that's my house icon, then training, then students. So if I come back to OU campus, I know that my house icon is uvu.edu/training, then I need to find students. So here it is, students. And technically I would know that I'm looking for that index file. So then I could go in and edit that page. So our breadcrumb is going to mimic our URL in the address bar of our site. That's going to help us find the file that we're looking for when we know that we need to make updates to a certain page. It's always important to be considering our breadcrumb anytime that we create a new file or upload a file. The reason for this is that it makes it easier to find those files later when we need to create links to them or update them or even just organize our files in a certain way. If I need to get back to the main level of my site, I just click on the name and I'm back at the main level. If I accidentally click on the house icon, it will take me to a list of all the folders and files that make up the entire uvu.edu site. But don't worry if you do that. You probably won't have access to very many of them, so they'll be black and you won't be able to click on them. But don't panic. You can either just scroll through the list and find your department site, or you can type in the name of your site and it will be pulled up for you and you can go right into it and you're back where you started. Alright, so now let's talk about uploading files to OU Campus. Like I said before, every website has a docs folder and an images folder. The reason for that is so that files can be organized a bit more in a standard way. When we were doing a migration to move the site into a new template, we found that a lot of sites had different file types alongside each other. We would see PDFs next to image files, next to pages, next to Excel spreadsheets, and it just didn't make a lot of sense, and it was difficult for people to find the files that they were looking for. So now, anytime you need to upload a document, a PDF file, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation, or anything like that, you'll do it inside the Docs folder or a subfolder of the Docs folder. So I'm going to click on Docs, and using my breadcrumb, I can see I'm in /training/docs. This folder is empty because I haven't uploaded any files to it yet. But let's say I have multiple documents, multiple PDFs that I don't just want to be in one giant list here in this folder. That's okay. I can create subfolders to organize them in. And I would do that by coming up here to New and choosing the New Folder option. Now, before I get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between a new folder and a new section. This can be confusing because they both have the folder icon, but they don't do the same thing. The Create New Folder option is for creating a folder meant for storing files. The New Section option is meant for creating a folder to create new files in. So New Section is going to create a subsection of your site, but it's also going to create supplementary files that allow you to create additional files within it. So it'll allow you to create new pages of your site within it. But a New Folder option will only let you upload files to it. If you have questions about this or you're not sure which option to use, feel free to contact Web Development Services and we can hopefully point you in the right direction. So in this case, I just want to upload files to a new section of my Docs folder. So I'm going to choose Create New Folder. Let's say I want to create a new section for 2014 documents. So that's the name of my new folder. I hit Create, and OU Campus creates that subfolder for me. Now I can upload my 2014 specific PDFs or other documents inside that folder, and it's going to be okay because it's still within the Docs folder. So if I click on that, you can see I'm inside the Docs folder in a subfolder called 2014, and I'm ready to upload some documents. So I click on the Upload button, again, making sure that I'm keeping track of my breadcrumb location. And I have a few options here. I can do a standard upload, an upload and edit image, or you may or may not have a zip import option. So don't worry about the zip import, and we'll talk about the upload and edit image option in a few minutes. When we're uploading PDFs and things like that, we're going to choose standard. If I have another file with the same name, I can choose the overwrite existing option. You may not have this available to you, but if so, you can check that box if you need to overwrite a different version of the file. Once I'm ready to upload, I choose Add Files, and I can browse through my computer for the file that I want to use. So I want to upload this spreadsheet. I choose it, and I can upload it to my site. Now when we're working in OU Campus, all of our files need to be meeting certain file naming standards. So we want all lowercase, all one word, no spaces, but hyphens and underscores are allowed. So if I had chosen to upload a file that perhaps I had a capital letter or a space in the name, instead of renaming it before I uploaded it, I could just rename it right here in OU Campus by choosing this rename option, changing the name, hitting OK. Then I'm ready to upload. So there it is. I've uploaded my spreadsheet here, but you may have noticed another option available in the upload dialog box. So when we hit that upload, we do have an option to drag and drop files from our desktop. And that is just what you would expect. We can come over to our desktop and just drag some files over and then upload them all at once. And then all of my files are here in my folder. So now we're going to talk for a second about the staging and production tabs that you'll see in OU Campus. The staging tab shows us folders and files that we're working on in OU Campus that have not been published yet. They're not yet available for people to visit on the web. The difference is that the production tab shows us folders and files that are published and viewable on the web if people have the URL or the address or the link to find them. Just because they've been published doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be able to find them. They'll need to have the link, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. So here I am on my production tab and it's empty, but my staging tab showed files that were available. If I want to make these files usable on the web, I need to publish them. So I have a few options to do this. I can check the box next to the file name and choose Publish, or I can hover over the name of the file and choose the Publish option. I could add a version description, just a note about what changes I've made to the file since the last time it was published, and then publish it. So down at the bottom, OU Campus is telling me that the file has been published and is now live on the web. So now when I go to my production tab, I should be seeing that book.xlsx file available. There it is. I published the file and now it's on the production tab, meaning that it's available to be linked to. Now if I want all my files to be available, I can just choose as many as I need to and publish them all at once. And now when I go to the production tab, they should all appear. There they are, ready to be used. Now if I go back to the staging tab and I click on one of these file names, I'll be able to preview that file. Now down here it says that the preview of binary files depends on your browser environment. What that means is that this file preview will only work if your browser knows how to handle that particular file type. Most browsers have no problem opening a PDF document, so for the most part you'll be able to preview PDFs without any problems. But if you're trying to preview a Word document or a spreadsheet, you might be prompted to download the file instead. The reason that this is helpful is that it helps us keep our files up to date. We don't want to hold on to old, obsolete files on our site. Our website is not an archive. It's not a storage solution for our departments. It's meant to be kept lean and up to date and accurate. So we can preview our PDFs or other documents and determine whether or not they're still relevant and up to date. If I were to preview this file and then decide that perhaps it was no longer necessary, I could delete it and clean out my site. Or I could determine that it's still up to date and accurate and keep it. In order to exit this view, I can just click on the Pages tab again. So those are the basics of uploading documents to our department site. And we'll talk about how to link to those documents in a few minutes. So I'm going to use the breadcrumb to navigate back up to the main level of my department site. Now I'm ready to add some images to my site. So I go to the Images folder. Again, all of our JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, or any other images are going to be uploaded inside the images folder for organizational purposes, but we do have the option to create subfolders like we did with the docs folder. We would do that again by clicking on the new option and choosing new folder. I'm not going to do that right now, but it is an available option. So I want to upload some pictures to my site. I hit the upload button again, and I'm going to leave it at standard for now because we're going to look a little bit at how the process of uploading a file works. I'm going to say add file, and again, I can browse for pictures on my computer hard drive. If I need to rename them, I can do that as well, and then when I'm ready, I can upload them. And while this is uploading, I want to point out that the file size is 11 megabytes. We can see that here. That's a pretty significant file size. It's too big to use on the web, and that might seem like an arbitrary number, but we'll take a look at what that means in a minute here. So, I've uploaded my file. It's on the staging tab, so I can kind of make some changes and modifications to it. If I click on the file name, again, I'm going to be able to see a preview of this file. But this preview is a little bit different than when we were previewing our PDF. So here's my preview, and it took a while to load because this file is so large. I'm going to scroll across this file just so we can get an idea of how big it is. So this is the file that I uploaded. It's really, really big. We don't want to use files that are this big on our website, and there are a few reasons for that. The main one is that we don't have any control over what sort of internet connection our visitors might have. We don't know how fast of a connection they have when they're either at home on their computers or using their phones to look at our site. So if we force them to download a file this size, we could be using a big chunk of their data plan without necessarily knowing it. So OU Campus has built in a tool that lets us kind of remedy this issue. And you'll notice over here I have a little tools box, and there's a resize option. I'm going to open that, and it's telling me that this image is 4,800 pixels wide. To give you a little bit of perspective, the width of our template at uvu.edu is only about 1,100 pixels wide. So this image is 4 times bigger than our template is. There's no real reason to have a picture this big on our department site. The widest we would ever need is 1,100 pixels. The best thing that we can do is size our image to be as close as we want it to actually appear on the site. So luckily, we have this tool that lets us get that as close as possible. So I'm going to change the width here to, let's say, 500 pixels. And you'll notice that OU Campus is changing the height as well. It's preserving the ratio so that my image doesn't get skewed. When I hit resize, OU Campus is going to change my image to be the size that I requested. This is a much more manageable image size for use on the web. If I wanted to, I could also crop my picture using a few predefined aspect ratios or a custom aspect ratio as well. I can rotate my picture if I want to. I can even zoom in or undo any of those changes. So I've resized my image and I want to work with it. So I scroll down to the bottom and I have 2 options. I can do save or save as. Most of the time we're going to choose the save option because we don't really have a reason to keep that old big version of the file around, and if we choose save, it will replace that with this new smaller version. But for the purposes of our training, I'm going to do save as. And I'm going to call it Campus 01 version 2. Save. Okay. Then again, I go back to my pages view, and here are my 2 pictures. Here's my original, 11.1 megabytes. Here's my resized version, 53 kilobytes. That's again, probably an arbitrary number for a lot of us, but it's a much more appropriate size for use on the web. We want our images definitely to be ending with a K in the file size instead of an M. So, just like with my PDFs, I would need to publish these files if I want them to be available for use on the web. So I'm just going to publish my resized version. And then check on the production tab and make sure that it shows up. You don't always need to check the production tab, I just kind of want to demonstrate what it does. But you can generally trust that if you get a success message that it will show up there. Alright, so that's my image, ready to be used on the site. Now, in my upload box here, I mentioned this upload and edit image option. Now, if I have a file on my desktop that I know is too big before I even have uploaded it, I can choose this upload and edit option, and what that will do is take me to my Resize preview window before it even uploads the file. So it hasn't even uploaded it yet, and it wants me to resize. So I can resize this, and then it will finish the upload. And when I go back to my Pages view, there's my newly uploaded file. So those are both great methods to accomplish the same thing. Essentially, we want people to understand that we shouldn't be using images straight out of a digital camera on our site. They're way too big, there's no reason for it, and it causes our visitors to use a lot of data that they may not want to use in order to visit our site. And it also causes our pages to take a lot longer to load, and definitely we always want to be keeping that in mind when we are adding content to our pages. So that's working with images. In a few minutes, we'll look at how to insert these images into our department pages. So, if I come back to the Content tab and the Pages view, oh, just kidding, I'm already there. I go up to the main level of my site, the training level. So here I am at the root of my site again, and let's say I want to create a new page. What I would do is hit my New icon and choose one of the options that are available to me. You'll probably have options for a 1-column, 2-column, and 3-column, so you can choose whichever of those you'd like. There may be more options available in the future, but for now that's what we have. I'm going to choose a 2-column page. And here I'm asked to add some information about this page that I'm creating. My page title is the information that will show up in the top tab of my browser here, and it will also show up right here on my page. Now, you can edit it later if you want to, but we want it to be something that is relevant to the page and makes sense. So for now, I'm going to call this a training page. Our search title is what will show up on a search engine results page. So this will be applicable to Google or the UVU search or any other search engine that we might be using. Let's say I wanted to do a search for biology. Here's my results page. These are my search titles. For the most part, these are going to be the same as your page title. It's totally fine to copy and paste if you want to. Just be aware that that's where these will show up. Our search keywords are comma-separated words or phrases that we think people will be searching in order to find this page, that we think people will be typing into Google or whatever search engine it is in order to find this page. So I might be using web, training, UVU, things like that. Our search description is what will appear here on a search results page. It's the brief description right underneath the title. Now, you'll notice that some of these are concise descriptions of what you'll find on the page, and some of them, the ones that start with ellipses here, are content that's just being pulled randomly out of the page. The difference here is that on this page, a search description has been entered, but on this page, there was the search description was left blank, and Google is just trying to pull any content that it can out of the page that it thinks is relevant. So if you're particularly concerned about where your pages are turning up in search results, you'll definitely want to put in a search description. It's just a brief, maybe 1 or 2 sentences describing your page. If you chose a page that has multiple columns, a 2-column or 3-column template, you can choose how you want those columns to be laid out. I'm just going to leave mine as the default option. And next we have our file name. The file name is what will appear in the address bar of our pages when we're looking at individual pages. So for example, here on this page, it's called theme.html. That's our file name. Now, like I said, if it's an index page, it will kind of be hidden by default, but any other file names will appear in your address bar. And again, if it's a PCF in OU Campus, it will become .html when it's live and been published on the web. So for my file name here, again, all lowercase, all one word, no spaces, but hyphens and underscores are allowed. So I'll call this training-test-page. And I want to make sure that I leave the .pcf. I don't want to accidentally delete that. If you have another file with the same name that you're wanting to replace, you can choose override existing. You may not have that option available, but if you do, you can hit that if you need to. So then we hit create, and OU Campus is going to build this page for us. And here we are. OU Campus has just built this page. It's built in our header up at the top. It's built in our navigation, which is hard to see because this button is in the way, but our navigation is there. And it's built in our footer down at the bottom. So we don't need to worry about adding any of that content. We just need to make sure that we are editing and updating the content in the main area of the page. So let's look at how to edit our pages. If you are not seeing green buttons like I have across my page, you'll need to make sure that your page is checked out, so your light bulb icon needs to be yellow. You also will need to make sure that you've hit the edit button so that this is highlighted and you have the green buttons. Each of these green buttons indicates a different section of the page that can be edited. So we need to kind of think of our page in terms of which section we're making changes to. So I'm going to just pick this main content area and hit the edit content button. And I'm taken into an editor. This editor is going to be pretty similar to an editor you would use in any maybe blogging platform like Blogger or WordPress, or even if you've used something like Word, it's got a lot of the same functionality. So we're just going to kind of go through each of these icons fairly quickly and take a look at what each of these do. If you need clarification more than is offered here, I'd encourage you to watch some of the topic-specific training videos that are also listed on the web community site. Those will be a little bit more specific than we're going to be here. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to zoom in a little bit here so we can get a better view of each of these icons. So up at the top here we have a button to save. Next to that we have a save as. Next to that we have a revert to the last save. We have cut, copy, paste, and paste as plain text. And what paste as plain text will do is when you copy and paste from a different program, so from Word for example, and paste it into this editor, it will remove any formatting that you might have had, like bold, italic, underline, or anything like that. Next to that we have find, replace, undo, redo. We have a spell check. We have a clear formatting button, and that does the same thing as paste as plain text, but that's for content that is already on the page. So if you want to remove any colors or bold or any of that sort of thing on your content, you would use this button to do that. Next to that we have bold, italic, underline, strike through. We can do a bulleted list and a numbered list. We can do text indent, quote, block quote, superscript, subscript. We have a few icons for text alignment. Going down to the next row, we can change our font size. We want to be careful about using the font size option. Whenever we're working on our pages, we always need to keep in mind that these sites are for a higher education institution. That being the case, we want to make sure that our pages look consistent and professional. We know that a lot of the time there's information that you really want your visitors to see, and the best way to do that is not necessarily by making the font size really big or by making the color really bright. There are ways to do that that look consistent with the rest of the site and still present a professional look to our site. So font size is available here. You can use it. Just kind of be judicious about your use of the font size. Next to that, we have a drop down for some predefined styles. By default, when you type in the editor, your text is going to be in a paragraph. So generally you'll see paragraphs. You also have some headings. The headings are important for a few reasons. What they let us do is to provide a consistent look to all of our subheadings and headings on a page. So for example, here in our placeholder content, we have a section header, and when I click into that or highlight it, you'll see that heading 2 is selected from our drop-down. So this is using a heading 2 option. And let's say that I have another subheading in my page that I want to add, but I want it to look the same as the existing heading. That's really simple. So what I can do is just highlight the text that I want to become the heading and choose heading 2 from the drop-down. And in that one click, I've made it the same size and the same color and the same font as my other heading. So these predefined headings will help make sure that our pages look really consistent. There are default styles for these headings, but if you kind of want to customize those a little bit, we can help you with that. So feel free to contact Web Development Services if you kind of want to customize your headings. And you'll notice our heading sizes go from largest to smallest, 1 being the largest, 6 being the smallest. Heading 1 is generally what you're going to see as the main page title, and any subheadings are generally going to be heading 2, heading 3, maybe heading 4. Another reason that these drop-down headings are really useful is because they're important for our search engine optimization, or SEO. Google or whatever search engine we're using is going to put a lot of weight on whatever text it finds in a heading 2. So when we're typing these headings, we want to make sure that we're using relevant terms and words that people will be searching in order to find the content on this page. Heading 2 is kind of the most important for that, but definitely anytime that you're using a heading, it's going to be kind of looked at with a little bit more weight than just regular text on your page. Next to that, we have a styles drop-down. We're not going to cover this really in this particular training. That's something that we talk about more in our advanced training, because most of it has to do with our adaptive responsive design, and that's something that we cover more in an advanced training. So look for opportunities to attend that training. We have that listed on our website as well. But next to that, we have an option to change our text color. And if I click on this little arrow, you'll see we've got quite a few color options. Again, we're building pages for a higher education institution. We want our site to look professional. We want it to look consistent. We definitely don't want to see bright fuchsia text. For example, if I were to highlight and choose a nice bright purple, this is not something that we want to see on our website. It's hard to read. It's not great for accessibility purposes. It just doesn't look very good. Luckily, University Marketing has come up with some official colors for use on the web, and we can find out what those are really easily. I'm just going to open a new tab and type in uvu.edu/web. And right here at the top, we have a link, Standards and Styles. And this is giving me a nice color palette of all of the official UVU web colors. These are provided by University Marketing, so we know that they are good for us to use on the site. Now, keeping in mind, some of these are really meant to be accent colors. Just because a color is listed here does not necessarily mean that we want our text to be in that color. We don't want to make text this yellow necessarily because that's going to be hard to read. So keep that in mind as you're working, but let's say that we want one paragraph on our page to be a nice official UVU green. So what we would do is come to this page and copy this little code. It's called a hexadecimal code, and it kind of just tells the browser what color to display. So I just copied that little code, come back over to the OU Campus editor, and I'm going to highlight the text that I want to change. Now, when I come up to my color palette chooser, instead of choosing one of these predefined colors, we're going to click on More Colors. And right here we have a spot where we can paste in that code. So I'm just going to paste that right in, hit Apply, and now my text is a nice official UVU green. It's easy to read. It fits in with the general color scheme of the overall site, and I'm good to go. So that's how we can use official UVU colors on our site. Next to that, we have an Insert and Edit Image icon. So we're going to take a look at how we would add an image to our site. So first we need to put our cursor wherever it is that we want our picture to show up. Then we click on that icon, and it's asking for an image URL, meaning where on the internet can I find the picture that you want to display here. Now, I don't typically memorize the URL of every file that I ever work with, so we can choose this Browse button here, and that's going to let me look for files on my site. Now, this is why it's important that we have kind of consolidated all of our images to be inside the images folder, because by default we're loading into the images folder of my training site. So that's exactly where I want to be. That's exactly where I uploaded my picture. So here is the resized version of the photo that I uploaded a little bit earlier, and I can insert it into my page. Now, if the picture that I want to use has not been uploaded yet, if it's still on my hard drive, for example, that's okay, because right from this screen I have an option to either upload a picture or I can upload and edit. And we kind of already saw what that process is. Generally, we're going to use upload and edit to be on the safe side, especially if we're uploading something directly from a digital camera. So that would be the same process that we've already looked at. It will take you to the same preview screen where you can resize and crop and all of that. So I'm going to choose this picture, and I need to add a description. The reason we need to add a description is for accessibility. We want to make sure that someone who might be visually impaired that's using a screen reader is able to get a sense of what is in this picture. So my description is going to be UVU Campus, and I could insert it, and that would be fine, or I can come under this Appearance tab and kind of fine-tune my picture a little bit. So if I wanted perhaps to have my image aligned to the right side of the screen, and I wanted to add a little bit of padding between the image and my text, I could do that. I can also add a border if I want to, make other adjustments like that, and then insert my picture. So here it is, my picture of campus. Now, when I click on it and highlight it, you'll notice that I have this little kind of border all around it. That is an indication to me that I have selected the picture, and it also allows me to resize my picture a little bit if I need to. Now, this is kind of a tricky thing. This does let me fine-tune the size of my picture by clicking and dragging and get it just the right size. However, this is not actually changing the size of the file. This is just making it display at a smaller width and height. It's still downloading a large file if I haven't optimized it and resized it. So clicking and dragging is not to be our first and only effort at making our pictures the right size. We need to be going through that process of upload and edit to make sure that they're an appropriate size for use on the web. Otherwise, we're still having our visitors download that really large file. So click and drag is really just if you want to fine tune it, maybe those last 10 or 15 pixels to get it just right. Okay, so let's say we decide after we've added our picture that we want to maybe change the alignment or change our border or something like that. We can just click on it to highlight it and go back to our same insert edit image icon. Click on that again. It'll load the picture for us so we can make sure it's the one that we want to be changing. Go back under the Appearance tab and maybe change our alignment to left and make our border a little bit smaller. Make whatever adjustments we need to. And hit Update, and it will make those changes for us. It would be the same process if we want to replace our existing picture with another picture. We could click on it, go back to that same icon, and browse for a different file and maybe choose a different picture from our list. I don't have another picture in my list to show, so that's just how you would do it if you did have more pictures to choose from. So we do have one other option for adding images to our pages, and that is by using a gadget. So you'll notice when you're working in OU Campus, you have this little icon that looks like an electrical plug. And if I click on that, it expands and shows me some tools that I can use to help me with whatever it is that I'm doing. And one of those tools is this images gadget. And this essentially is loading that same location, training/images. And it lets me just drag pictures right onto my page instead of going through that insert process. So I just drag it, and again, I need to add my description. I need to fine tune it however I decide to do that, and it will just drop the picture right in for me. So it's doing the same thing, it's just maybe a little bit quicker way of doing it. So that's available as well. And you'll notice you can kind of look at the other gadgets and see if those are things that are going to be helpful for you as well. Okay, so that's working with images. I'm going to delete my second image. I don't need that. We're going to look now at how to insert embedded media. Embedded media would be, for example, video files or audio files that you want to put on your pages. It works really similar to the way that we would do images. We click on the icon, and again, it's asking us for a URL, and we would go and browse for a file. You can go browse for pictures, not pictures, for videos, audio, that sort of thing, and insert it into your page. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. This is a bit more of an advanced training, and by default, we don't have sites set to upload video files. If you are wanting to add video files to your page, call us, call Web Development Services, and we can help get the settings just right so that you can add video files. The reason that we don't have that set up by default is because we kind of have been encouraging departments to use video streaming services like YouTube or Vimeo to host their videos. That way those services are doing the work of hosting the video, making sure the video is in high definition, it's an appropriate size, making sure that it streams well, that it's mobile friendly. They do all of that work, and all we would do is input a little bit of code. If you want to see how that would go, how that would work, how you would embed a video, take a look at the task video specific to embedding a YouTube video into a page. That will give more detailed information about how that would work. Okay, so next to that we have an icon for a horizontal line, which is exactly what you would expect it to be. It just inserts kind of a dividing line. And next to that we have an icon for a line break. A line break is kind of an interesting thing that is kind of more helpful than you would necessarily think from the get-go. But so let's take a look here down at the bottom of my page. I've got a paragraph. And let's say that I put my cursor at the end of one sentence and I hit the return key or the enter key, and I do that a few times. Now each time I do that, it's creating a new paragraph, and that is adding some space between each line because each paragraph has some space after it. But let's say I don't want that extra space. I don't want to create a new paragraph on each line. I just want them to be one right after the other. What I can do instead is use the line break. The line break is just going to move things to the very next line. So I've got my cursor in here, and I'm going to come up here and hit the BR icon for break, and that just moves things right to the very next line. There's also a keyboard shortcut for this, and that would be hitting the shift and enter or shift and return key at the same time, and it will do the same thing. Okay, next to that we have an insert special character. So if you need mathematical symbols, accented characters, anything like that, you're going to find that here. Next to that, we have an icon to show and hide guidelines. Those are really only relevant when we're talking about tables. We're not going to get too much into tables here, but we will take a look at them in a minute. So we'll kind of come back to this icon. Next to that, we have an icon to edit the HTML source of a page. So when I click on that, it brings up the HTML code that is actually building this part of the page. This is not the code for the entire page. It's just this one section. But if you want to kind of look at this and see how your page is being built, or perhaps if you have some a snippet of code that needs to be dropped into your page, you can come here to do that. Code Protect is not something that we're going to worry about. Snippets and assets are more advanced. We have training videos for each of those types of items, so you can look at those if you're curious about what those do. Coming down to the next row here, we have an option to insert and edit a table. I've mentioned a few times during this training that our site is adaptive responsive, meaning that it will adapt based on whatever device we are viewing the site on. So it's going to look different on a smartphone than it would look on a tablet, than it would look on a desktop computer, because the site will adapt and flex and adjust. To give you an idea of what we mean when we say that something is adaptive, if we come over to our other tab, I'm just going to shrink my browser down, and we're going to be able to see what that looks like. So as I shrink, I'm going from a tablet view down to a mobile view. You can see my header looks quite different. My menu becomes a slide out menu. And my columns are going to drop one after the other on this particular template. So you can see my second column falls underneath the first one. Now this requires that our content, our text, our pictures, anything else is able to do that flexing and adjusting. It's able to fit within the confines that it needs to be able to kind of adjust. Now, the reason that I bring this up while talking about tables is that tables don't really do this very well. In fact, by default, they don't really do it at all. So if you have a table that's a certain number of columns wide, and you try to shrink it on a mobile site, your table will not shrink. It will just stay too wide, and people will either not be able to see the entire table, or they'll have to scroll to see it, which is not ideal. So the reason that I bring this up is that tables really in the past have been used to lay out a page, to say I want an image on the left side and text on the right side, and I'm going to use a table to do that. That's not a great solution anymore because it will not adapt. People will not be able to see the full content of that. However, if you have a table, if you have data that really just needs to be tabular, it really needs to be displayed in rows and columns, and certainly there are times when that's the only way to make your content work, then a table is completely appropriate, and there are ways that we can kind of help make sure that your table displays well. And if you get to that point and you're not sure whether or not it's appropriate to use a table on your page, feel free to contact Web Development Services, and we can help provide suggestions and information to help you figure that out. Okay, so all that said kind of as a preface to how we would actually insert a table. Again, we're going to put our cursor wherever we want our table to show up. We choose the Insert Edit Table icon. We can set how many columns and rows we want our table to have. We can set some other options as well. Generally, we want to leave the width field empty. This is going to allow the table to size the way that it needs to instead of forcing it to be a certain width. This can help a little bit with adaptive responsive design. It does not solve the problem of tables in adaptive responsive design, but generally we're going to leave that empty. So I'm going to hit insert. And here's our table. Now the editor is showing me kind of some dotted lines showing each column and row. And when I start to type into the table, you'll see that it kind of is resizing. Now it will do that as much as it needs to fit the content. And I mentioned a minute ago that we have this show and hide guidelines button, and what that does, if I were to deselect that, you'll see those lines from my table disappear, and if I hit it again, my lines are back. So that's really all that icon does. So next to our insert table icon, we have an option to adjust the properties of an entire row of a table. So if I choose a row and that icon, I can change the alignment, that sort of thing. It's hard to tell here because my table is quite narrow, but you can do the same thing for an individual table cell as well. So you can make the alignment different in one cell than others. You can set a few other options that way. You can insert rows before or after your cursor. You can delete rows. Same with columns, before or after your cursor, and you can delete columns as well. You can merge multiple cells into one, or you can split them apart as well. Again, tables are kind of a tricky thing when we're talking about the web. We cover it more in an advanced training, so if you're curious to know more about tables and why they don't get along so well with adaptive design, check out the advanced training and we'll cover that more. So the last thing that we need to cover when we're talking about the editor are links. And I kind of skipped past those for a reason, but they're up here at the top in our first row of icons. Now, let's say we want to make, we want to turn some text into a link. What we would do is just highlight the text that we want people to click on, and then choose this Insert Edit Link icon that looks like a chain link. And it's bringing up a window and it's asking us for a link URL. In other words, when people click on this link, where do you want them to go? Now let's say it's a page within our site. We want them to go to another page that's part of our site. We can browse and look through the files on our site and insert the link. And now when people click on that text, they will go to that page. Let's say when we want them to go to a PDF file when they click on that link. Again, it's the same process. We highlight the text, insert the link, browse for a file, but this time, because we know that all of our PDFs and other similar documents are going to be inside the Docs folder, we navigate into that folder, perhaps a subfolder, and we find the file that we want them to go to. Again, we insert the link. Now, when people click on this link, it will take them to that PDF. The final type of link that we might use would be an external link. So let's say, for example, I want to link to this web styles page. It's not part of my training site, it's a separate site, so I can't browse for it. But what I can do is highlight and copy the address out of the address bar, come back to OU Campus, highlight my text, insert my link, but instead of browsing, because it's not part of my own training site, it's a separate site, I paste that address that I just copied. And typically when we're doing an external link to a different site than our own, Our target would be a new window, so I'm going to choose that instead. Insert my link. Now when people click on this link, it will take them to an external site that is not part of my own. If I want to get rid of any of these links, I put the cursor somewhere inside the link and click on the unlink icon that looks like a broken chain link, and my link disappears. If I want to change my link to point to a different location, I can either highlight or just put my cursor somewhere inside the link and come back to my Insert Edit Link icon and browse for a different file, insert, and update. And now when they click on that link, they'll go to a different PDF. We have a few other link types. We have a mail to link and an anchor link. We're not going to talk about the anchor link because that's, again, a bit more of an advanced thing. But the mail to link will allow you to create a link that opens someone's email client and addresses an email to a certain email address. So what we would do there is highlight our text, click on the mail to link icon, and just type in the email address for the person that we want to link or that we want to send the email to. Insert. Now when people click on that link, it will open whatever email client their computer uses and have an email addressed to that person. So those are the different options that we have in the editor. Once we're happy with the changes that we've made, we always need to make sure that we save. And that will take us to a preview where we can look at our page, decide if it looks good to us, if it's got all of the information that it needs, that there aren't any issues. This is a great time to check if our site adapts well. So if we shrink our browser, the preview window will show us how our site adapts. So we can kind of adjust it, get it down to a mobile size, scroll through, make sure nothing looks, none of our text is inappropriately sized, make sure that our images aren't getting skewed, make sure that nothing is overlapping anything else. Just give it a check to make sure it looks okay. Then once we're happy with that, we can publish our page by clicking this Publish button. That's going to bring up a window asking for a version description. The version description is just a quick little note to remind us about what changes we've made to the page since the last time it was published. Then we hit the Publish button, and down at the bottom, OU Campus notifies us when it's finished, and it lets us view it in a new window, so we, again, can take a look at it, make sure it looks okay, make sure our links are all working, that sort of thing. So then our page is good. We're finished. We've edited our page. It's up to date. It's ready to go. Now let's say we have made these changes, but we decide that we want to undo some of our changes, or we accidentally deleted some content and we want to get it back, or something like that. What we can do in that case is what's called a revert. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that our page is checked out. So generally, anytime we're working with a page, we want to make sure that it's checked out. Again, my light bulb needs to be yellow, and you'll notice when I did that, I got some more options here. So let me just toggle that. When I have it checked out, I have more options available to me. I'm going to click on the Versions button, and this is showing me a few different times that the page has been published. Each time I publish the page, it gets added to this list, and you'll see we have some notes in here, our version descriptions. This just helps us know which version of the page we're getting back to. But let's say I wanted to go back to the original version of the page, I would hit the revert button and it would let me go back to that. Now, just because I revert does not mean that those changes are reflected on the live site. I would need to revert and then publish the page again, and it would get me back to the last version of the page. So that's how we would publish. I'm going to go back to the preview view for a second here. Let's say that I want to change the keywords that I entered into my page, or I want to change the page title. What I can do then is go to my page properties, and I can edit it right here. Now, if you are not seeing title and meta tags in your page properties, it's probably because the page is not checked out. So again, if I toggle this, you'll see a change in what is available to me. If I come to my properties view without checking out the page, my meta information is not there. So I check out my page, and then there's my meta information. So I can update my keywords, my description, my title, make whatever changes, then make sure that I save. And again, we always want to publish in order for those changes to be reflected on the live site. So that's pretty much it for OU Campus Basics. We have more detailed tutorial videos on the web community site that will show specific tasks in OU Campus if you want a little bit more detail about how to do specific individual things. You can watch those. We also have advanced training that we offer, so look around for that. It's offered on a regular basis, and it's a great resource as well. If you have any questions about this training, or if you need clarification about anything, first check out the tutorial videos, then feel free to contact us at websupport@uvu.edu by email, or you can call us at extension 7975. Thanks for watching.